Dear colleagues, I would like to welcome all of you. I would like to welcome you, dear President of Ukraine, dear Volodymyr. We are extremely pleased to have you today here in Brussels and to have this occasion to have once again an exchange of views with you on the state of play, on the situation in Ukraine. This is an important summit, it's an important meeting, and this meeting takes place in an important moment. And I have the impression that the recent weeks, together with you, with your country, we have tried to do our best to make some additional progress in our support for Ukraine, for the people of Ukraine. First of all, there was this important peace summit that took place in Switzerland, and we'd like to congratulate you and Ukraine on the result, on the outcome of this peace summit. This was important to rally a big part of the international community to express our common support for the UN Charter, for the territorial integrity and the sovereignty of Ukraine. It's also important to identify some concrete consequences of the war for the world, and to try to engage with partners across the world so that we can try to deliver and to make some progress in the humanitarian domain, in the field of the energy sector, or in the food security, for instance. This is one first element, and we are determined to support you so that there can be a useful follow-up following that meeting that took place in Switzerland. This is the first point. Second point, today once again we have the occasion to discuss our support to Ukraine, the financial support, the military support. You know that a few weeks ago in Italy, in the framework of the G7, we made some important steps to support Ukraine, and we have the occasion to see how at the EU's level we can make sure that we show our solidarity, including at the financial level. And finally, a few days ago, we made an additional important political step. We remember that you decided to apply to become an EU member, and the European Council decided to grant the candidate status to Ukraine. In the meantime, you made a lot of efforts. You put in place a lot of fundamental reforms, and we are very pleased that we made the decision a few days ago to start the negotiations with Ukraine following this first IGC that took place a few days ago. In a nutshell, dear President, dear Volodymyr, I would like to tell you that we know and understand what's at stake. We are very impressed by your leadership and by the political will and the courage of the people of Ukraine. We know that you are fighting for your freedom, you are fighting for your land, for your future, for your children, but you are also fighting for our common values and principles. And we have to explain, I think, all across the EU that by supporting Ukraine, we support a more stable and a more prosperous European continent in the future. This is also our collective duty to explain again and again to our European citizens. These are a few points I wanted to make in introduction. Now I would like to pass the floor to you, Volodymyr, but once again feel welcome. It's a great honor and a pleasure to be with you today here in Brussels.
Dear colleagues, dear Ursula, and I'm grateful to you that during these very difficult years for all of us, for Europe, we have maintained unity and ensured that Europe is stronger. The world has seen Europe's effectiveness, has seen our ability to find the right decision at the right time. Dear friends, the EU approved a negotiation framework for Ukraine, and negotiations on our country's accession have already begun. Thank you very much for it. This is Europe's historic choice. Thank you again. And I am convinced that every European nation that shares common European values should be part of the European family. This is true for Ukraine. This is true for Moldova, really for the peoples of the Balkans. I'm sure Georgia's moment will come. And I'm sure that there will be decisions regarding Belarus, because it's also a European nation that should be in a united Europe in the future. And now it will be right for us to move from decision to decision without wasting time. We have already held the first intergovernmental conference between Ukraine and the EU, and we hope that the next steps will not be delayed, including the official screening procedure. Ukraine is ready to go through all the necessary steps. And I would also like to thank you for the security agreements. Today, Charles Michel, Ursula von der Leyen, and we signed the joint security commitments with the EU. Together with President Nausėda, I signed a security agreement between Ukraine and Lithuania, and together with Prime Minister Kallas, the security agreement between Ukraine and Estonia. And I invite everyone in Europe who is still on the sidelines of the security work to join us. And one more thing that is important to mention: in May, Putin tried to expand the war by launching a new offensive in the east of our country. Thanks to the bravery of our people and the decisions of our partners, we stopped this Russian offensive. But this new Russian offensive proved that the existing pressure on Russia for the war is not enough. And so, first, I wanted to mention about military support, artillery, shells, and fulfillment of every promise is important, not only in terms of protecting lives, but also to destroy the Russian illusion that they will achieve something by war. Funding is very important through the European Peace Facility and on a bilateral basis, funding that is timely, as well as logistics, so that each package that is announced comes to the battlefield as soon as possible. Second, air, shield and long-range capabilities. We are managing to bring security back to Kharkiv, one of the largest cities in Ukraine, security from Russian missiles. This is due to the elimination of Russian missile launchers near our border. Each of you knows how this became possible. And also we must protect Kharkiv and every other city in Ukraine from Russian guided bombs. That is a big problem. Our long-range strikes and modern air defense are the key to stopping this terror. And I thank each and every one of you who is helping to make this happen. The third is Russian assets. And I'm grateful for the decision that provide Ukraine with the financial resources from frozen Russian assets. It's fair that the assets of the terrorist state work to protect Ukraine suffering from Russian terror, and all the assets of the terrorist state should work to protect life, of course. And we must find the right way to confiscate all these assets. And now we see how the sanctions against Russian oligarchs started to be lifted. We must stop these and strengthen sanctions because Putin's regime rests on such money. And the fourth is energy. Closer to winter, it can be the first, really. And so Putin wages an all-out war against our energy sector. It's our duty to prevent Russia from setting a precedent for destroying the energy of an entire nation. If Russia succeeds, it will become part of military doctrines around the world. Energy is one of the foundations of the normal human life. We do everything we can to restore the power generation and to protect this generation, and we need a significant increase in electricity imports from the EU, as well as support with equipment and other resources to protect and restore our energy system. And the fifth is diplomacy. Thank you all. I thank all of you for participating in the Peace Summit, which was a clear success of our peacemaking efforts. We proved that the world can unite to restore the full effectiveness of the UN Charter and return peace to Ukraine. Nine more participants have signed the final communique of the summit, and we are continuing this work with more signatures to come. I also invite you to join the preparation of the second Peace Summit. We are now organizing groups that will work on developing specific action plans to bring the just end of the war reliably, honestly and for a long time. And we need as much joint efforts as possible to achieve this. Europe has proven that it can be efficient, and I thank you for that. Thank you for your support. I am grateful for this historic Belgium presidency of the EU, and I wish the next one, the Hungarian presidency, to be effective. Slava Ukraini. Thank you.
Thank you, Vladimir. And now I would like to give the floor to Mette Frederiksen, please.
Thank you, Charles, and thank you, Volodymyr, for participating here today. I think for the last more than 2 years,